Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, damsels and dingbats, to another episode of Doin The D. Today, we're taking a look at the Detroit Zoo. Fun fact about the Detroit Zoo, it's not actually in Detroit. It's actually located about 2 miles north of the city limits. It was opened in 1929, and it's run by the Detroit Zoological Society. That one was hard to say. The DZS, as it's known, is a nonprofit organization, and the zoo covers about 125 acres of what is called naturalistic exhibits, which I guess just means it looks like the places where they live, which is like most zoos. So, the zoo has 2,000 animals, representing about 245 species. And these animals are viewed annually by roughly 1.6 million visitors. And it was the first zoo in the United States to use barless exhibits, which basically means they dig ditches around the exhibits that the animals can't get across, or moats in that case. Man, I wish I had 1.6 million subscribers. That would be awesome. A year? Eat your heart out, PewDiePie. Well, I'd have a couple years to catch up. But anyway, quick disclaimer on this video before we get going on it. I had a lot of footage taken over 2 trips across the last 2 years, just because we didn't manage to see all of the zoo in either trip. I'm still missing a couple areas just because they were closed. And we didn't make it in one time or the other, and it was closed one time or the other. So for various reasons, I don't have footage of those locations. But we did cover most of the zoo. We went up this last weekend for Tara's birthday and got ourselves some sunburn, which is awesome considering the weather that we've had lately here in Michigan. But so the video is going to be largely comprised of some videos here, some pictures there. The weather's going to look like it changes frequently because they're from 2 different days in 2 different years. And they're going to go by pretty quick, too. So I'm going to try and do a little bit of commentary as we go. But I'm not going to have the time to talk about each individual animal and each individual exhibit. Some of them are going to just be like, and here are the buffalo. And then moving on, because if I was to go into that extent, this video would be like 8 hours long, and I'm trying to stay within my half hour to 45-minute range. So, all right. Well, our visit to the zoo this time started at the reptile house. Actually, we stopped to take a look at the pond and the ducks and the geese and the swan, and I guess if we're being true to name here, it's not actually a pond. It's called the Cotton Family Wetlands. In this photo here, you can see the National Amphibian Conservatory across the wetlands here. But like I said, our first stop in our visit this time was to the Reptile Center, which is actually called the Holden Reptile Conservation Center. Now, though I took lots of pictures and a couple videos, I did not get nearly everything in the center. It's actually got roughly 150 reptiles across 70 species, and approximately 45% of them are considered threatened or endangered across, the planet. So some of these are kind of awesome to see. I tried to get some good pictures up close of some of them. Some of the cases I couldn't get to just because there were so many people lingering around them. And for those of you who know me, I don't do good jumbled up in a crowd. So I got as many as I could. Small fact about the Reptile Center, or rather I should say fun fact, it's not small by any means. The largest reptile on showcase here at the center is actually the reticulated python. We were not able to get a look at the python, however, even though it's got a 20-foot by 8-foot space, 8-foot ceiling, it's got a large enclosure. It was actually hiding from us, and it was sleeping kind of at the back where you couldn't see it. So I didn't bother taking any photos of that, but by what I heard, people talking about it who've seen the python, it is absolutely massive. So we did get to see some turtles and some snakes and some lizards, and there was I believe there was a caiman there, and just all kinds of awesome looking critters. My favorite was the black iguana, which ironically was green.
Are we ready? Over here. Ready?
Alright. I'll do that. I'll touch the glass.
Come on, over here.
He's kind of got some color. Pretty colors on his head. Yeah.
That's a turtle.
Hi.
Turtle. Oh, he's cute.
Yeah, they both are.
JJ, look at the crocodile.
I've seen that big too, Dad.
Yeah. Doesn't that crocodile look scary?
Next in our visit was the Polk Penguin Conservation Center, which is home to more than 75 penguins of 4 species. Not more than, I'd say, 3 or 4 years ago, it was actually based in a much smaller facility over by the aviary and the butterfly building, but they put up this new center, and it's just absolutely amazing. It's all high-tech and futuristic. They've got a tunnel where you can walk down underneath and see the penguins swimming overhead, and they've got one part you can sit and watch the penguins like it's in a giant aquarium, and they use projectors to project data on the water and on the penguins and all kinds of stuff. They project it onto the glass, and it looks all holographic. The 4 species of penguin that they have here are the Gen 2, the king penguin, the macaroni, and the southern rockhopper. My favorite part of the zoo is actually, as you go downstairs, there's an area where they project onto all 4 walls around you, and it looks like you're on the deck of a ship, and of course they have different scenes, but they mist water on you from above, so that it feels like ocean spray. The first time I saw it, I sat in there for like an hour, just amazed. I want that as a game room in my house, but unless this channel explodes and I get that 1.6 million subscribers we were talking about, we're just going to have to leave this in the realm of dream harder, buddy. That's what I thought the first time I saw this room. Was like, I'm here. love this room.
This isn't the container, right?
Here you can see that tunnel that I was speaking about earlier, where you're actually, earlier in the footage for the penguin exhibit, you saw where the penguins were sitting around the water and swimming through the water. This is actually just below the surface of that area. And these are the same penguins. I imagine it has to be soundproof glass or something, because you know how sound travels through water. Well, sound does not travel through these walls apparently, because it gets loud in here. All the noise from the people talking and the children laughing and yelling, it just reverberates through here. You know, and I can only imagine if this, it has to be soundproof glass, because otherwise you'd imagine that sound would travel through the water and just agitate the hell out of these poor penguins. But they seem perfectly at ease. Luckily, I think we caught them during feeding time, because as you can see, they're all starting to kind of migrate into that one area there, and it looks like they're eating something. But yeah, it's kind of a nice room. If you can get in here when there's no people in here, it's nice and quiet. It's really peaceful. Here's that room I was telling you about, where they project the information onto the glass. If you watch here in a minute, when I pan up and around, you'll probably catch a good glimpse of it. But we were focused more on the penguins this time. The novelty of the hologram glass kind of wore off on us, because we've been here a few times now. But I wanted to get some good images of the penguins and whatnot for you guys. So. Okay, well, it doesn't look like we caught a glimpse of it. Actually, I think you caught a small glimpse right there in the beginning when we entered the room, but, you know, it's no big. It's kind of cool, but in this room here, these are actually screens, like display screens. They're not actually water. There's no way there's actually a whale in the next room, but I thought it was kind of cool the way they set it up, where they did virtual exhibits and had the little placards next to the screens to kind of explain what the animals were. Also, this is kind of like the basement area of the exhibit, so they kind of just put some stuff in here to keep you occupied as you're making your way under the tank, and you know, the stairs. You eventually come back up on the other side, and you can view the larger penguin room from the other side.
Alright, Angel, you ready?
Look, it's a penguin using the bathroom.
Remember when we saw the, what did you see?
The emu Let's go downstairs.
When we just were down there, was it why are there tigers and bears then?
It wasn't easy.
Well, let's go see bears. Okay? Okay. Let's go see the bears.
Hey.
Making our way out of the penguin exhibit, we decided, Tara decided she wanted to see her tiger, so we went ahead and made our way back up the zoo. Along the way, we stopped and took a visit with the otter. This is actually, I don't know if the otter itself is new to the zoo, But I know the last time we were here, they were building this pen, this exhibit, and this was the first year since then that the animal was actually in on view in this enclosure. Next en route to the tigers, we came to the camel pen. Not a lot to be said about the camels. They have 4 or 5 of them. Usually in the enclosure, we usually see 1 or 2 deer. I think you can see them back there in the corner. This year, there was another animal back in the back. We have ourselves a little T-Rex. They're getting ready for their Dinotopia exhibit here in a month or two. So we continued on our way, and the next animal we came across was the red panda, who was quite cutely and obligingly displaying himself up in the trees. So we visited with him for a couple minutes. And then we made our way over to Tara's tiger. Now, we've seen this tiger every time we've come to this zoo, but it is always sleeping. It is always laying in that little cubby hole right there, and I have yet to see the thing move, so I'm not entirely sure if it's even real. After that, we moved up into the primate area where we saw this, I guess this is called a drill. I kept wanting to call it a baboon every time I looked at it, but I looked it up on their website, and it's actually called a drill. And this is from last year. He wasn't actually out for visitors this year. I don't know if he was sleeping or what. Most of the animals this year were out because, like I said, our weather's been really nasty the last few weeks. It's like spring just does not want to let go, and winter's just kind of carrying the slack. But this year when we went, the sun was out and it was beautiful, so most of the animals were out. A lot of them were sleeping, sprawled out in the sun. This is also from last year. We didn't stop by the gorilla enclosure this year just because we got there a little bit late, and the zoo closes around 5, so we only had a couple hours, and we wanted to see as many of the animals as possible. So we just didn't quite make it this year. But this, like I said, this is from last year. You can see, I believe this is a silverback. There are also chimpanzees. I'm not sure if they're in the same enclosure, but there's like a big wall to keep the chimpanzees and the gorillas separate, I think. But then we get to Tara's tigers, her other big kitties. This is what I mean about sprawled out in the sun. The only movement we saw at all was the lion here. The male was actually like he rolled over on his back and kind of drooled on himself a little. But that was about it. Next up, we get to the Japanese macaque. Is that how you pronounce it? I'm not sure. But these little guys were fairly active. If you consider that they were just kind of sitting there looking around, you could get a good view of them, as you can see. So it's not like you walk in one of those situations where you walk up and the exhibit seems empty. But so I got some video of them for you. Next on our trip, we stopped by the rhino cage. And these are the same 2 rhinos in both videos, or in this picture and in this video here. They're the same rhinos, though they're taken a year apart. I don't know what else can be said about rhinos. They're big. They're not exactly ugly, but they're definitely fun to watch. Okay, that's enough excitement for me. Just around the corner from the rhinos, we see, I believe it's pronounced capybara. It's just this big-headed bird sitting in a cage all by itself. We didn't see it this year. This is from last year. Going across the walkway, we get to see some warthogs sprawled in the sun. Bacon. From there, just a few feet away in another enclosure, we got to see some zebras. Now, I don't give a rat's ass what anyone says. Zebras are white with black stripes. If you look at their bellies are white. And the stripes all connect. The white is, well, they're white with black stripes. Okay, argument over. I'm right. Just deal with it. The next animal we come to is called an eland. What's an eland? I have no freaking clue. That right there. That's an eland. And these, of course, are spaghetti noodle string walkers. Giraffes. This year, the giraffes were not out. I don't know if they were doing some work on their enclosure or what. They were kind of back in their home building. This footage, again, is from last year, but magnificent animals. These spaghetti string noodle walkers, or whatever the hell I call them. Next, we find ourselves viewing the long-necked log in its natural... Hey, get the train out of my way. I'm trying to do a... Anyway, yes, there is a train that runs all the way around the perimeter of the zoo, carrying passengers from one side to the other. We didn't ride on the train this year, but since we saw it flying by here, I figured I'd catch it on video and let you take a gander. From there, it's only a short, meandering waddle down the path to the bear enclosure. We could have went through the kangaroo exhibit first, but we decided we wanted to kind of go over and check out the bears first. So don't worry, the roos will be next. Hey, fella. What you doing? You're grinning. You big old grinning bear. Oh, you're a handsome bear, huh? Yeah. Are you handsome? Yeah? You talk to me like a dog, I'll come over there and eat you. Are you pooping? Yeah, look at that grin. He's out pooping. Yeah, they really do remind me of big dogs. I wonder if I could get him to play fetch with something other than my leg. After traumatizing the bears with my ridiculous sense of humor and stupid commentary, we did, as promised, move to the kangaroo exhibit. This is an entirely fenced-off area. It's privatized, meaning they got big tarpaulins or whatever you want to call them along the fences so that you can't really see in or out. I'm presuming this is... I don't know why this is. It can't be so that the kangaroos don't get excited, because this is actually one of those exhibits where you walk in and you are actually walking this trail. This path is actually, like, the kangaroos can walk right up to you and you could touch them if you know, well, if you were lucky. If I tried, they'd probably kick the crap out of me. But other than kangaroos, there are also wallabies in this part of the zoo. This is all footage from last year. I took a couple pictures this year, but every single one of the animals in this enclosure were paralyzed by the sun. They all looked like they were dead. Like they were all laying out just sunbathing, and just none of them were even twitching. So I figured this footage would be a little more entertaining for you. Just past the roos, we come to the wolf enclosure. This is one of my favorite parts of the zoo because, you know, I love canines so much. The darker colored one here is actually the male. There is a female in the pen who is white. The photo that we have here is from last year. We didn't actually see her up and about this year. She was probably in the back hiding in the shade somewhere where we couldn't see her. Ironically, last year she was out and around and we didn't get to see the male any. So between the 2 years, we managed to see both of the members of this exhibit. After the wolf, we popped in to say hi to our little prairie dog buddies. Now, for those of us out in the country, prairie dogs are everywhere, groundhogs, whatever. But they've actually got this set up so that the young ones can go down under and pop their heads up out of these little glass tubes and be at eye level with the prairie dog. So that's kind of cute. Last year we saw that we were getting ready to leave, and I don't know what triggered them, but all of a sudden they all stood up and threw their hands in the air and went woo a couple times. It was freaking hilarious. I wish I had caught it on camera, but I didn't. Also, joining the prairie dogs this year was a male peacock who decided to become a Hollywood star. He decided he was going to pose and let me get some footage of him, so I grabbed that while I was at it. Kind of a cool point of interest here. The peacocks actually have free range over the zoo. I'm not sure why this fellow was hanging out here with his little rodent buddies, but all over the zoo you have. Like on the other side of the zoo, over by the primate area, there were actually a couple females just strutting around, following people begging for food. So, yeah, these guys can come and go however they please. Next, we have a bald eagle. He's actually got an open enclosure, meaning that there's nothing preventing him from flying away, minus the sad fact that he only has one wing. It's sad to think about the animal in that condition, but it's nice because the zoo actually adopted the animal and takes care of it, and allows people to get a close-up look at what this animal looks like when it's not flying way overhead. And here are some buffalo. Moving on. I told you we were going to get there. Anyway, a little further up the route, we have a wolverine. I was excited to see this guy this year because last year he was nowhere to be found, but he was out enjoying the sun and just romping all over the place. Next to the wolverine, we have a couple of bush dogs. Now, I've never heard of bush dogs before, and I really, I guess I can kind of see the dog part. I really don't see how it comes to be bushy. But, yeah, they were both out enjoying the sun, too. We didn't get to see those last year either, so today, this visit was really chock full of getting to see the animals. Across from the bush dogs, we have what I swear has got to be Tara's third favorite part of the zoo, coming only after the kitties. This is kind of a little barnyard area where they have horses and mules and cows and stuff like that. And I didn't go in. I come from the country, and I've seen enough cows and chickens and crap like that in my life to suit me just fine. But I went ahead and took a picture of the horses for you guys while we were waiting for her to get finished perusing the barnyard. Now here we see a pair of anteaters who I am a lot more interested in than I am in cows and pigs. Don't get me wrong, cows and pigs and horses and sheep, they all are nice animals to have on the planet, but anteaters are ones that I don't see on a regular basis, and they're awkward looking, and they're fun to watch shuffle around, and so, yeah, here's some anteaters. Heading back across the zoo to see our final exhibit, we stopped to take a picture of the carousel, and I took another of the main walk or thoroughfare or whatever you want to call it. It's pretty much a long park down the middle of the zoo with statues and fountains and stuff like that, so I thought you might like to see that. The final stop on our trip through the zoo is the polar habitat, which actually has 2 polar bears. We have not yet seen the polar bears in our several trips to the zoo. We're hoping one of these days we'll get to see them. Here, however, we do get to see a seal, so that's kind of cool. The zoo does have several other exhibits we were not able to visit this trip. Amongst them was the giraffe encounter area, where you can actually walk up on a platform and hand feed the giraffes. The amphibian theater was also closed. I don't know if they were doing renovations or what. Also, the 4D theater and the simulator ride we did not go to this year. We simply did not have time. So maybe in the future when we go back to the zoo, I might be able to catch some of that on film for you and put it back up. But for now, we are out of time, so we're going to go ahead and wrap up this episode of Doing the D. Until next time, I've been your host, DM Renavion, trying to say stay safe and have fun. I'm out.